Good to see you all here. Welcome. It should be Gerri. Welcome.
Oh, well.
That's right. So my name is Jim, and I am the NextGen pastor at Covenant Church here in Bemidji, and that's just right out by the movie theaters, if you know where that is. And I've been there for 12 years now. And I started out as a youth pastor for the first 8 years, and the last 3-4 years I've been the NextGen pastor. I work with kids ministry, youth ministry, and young adults as an associate for those, and work in support with all the leaders for those, and ministries for direction and all that. And this is Gerri.
Yeah, and I'm Gerri, and I am the kids ministry director here at the Free Church. It is a mission for me. I actually worked with Jim for the past 10 years.
It's super fun to see her taking on a job here.
Yeah, so Jim and I are well connected and have worked together for a lot of years. And so in January, I started the kids ministry director position here. So it's a privilege to be here. Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind, could we just quickly go around the room and tell us who you are? We want to get an idea of who we're talking with. It's not just us talking at you. We want to know who we're talking with. So let's start over here. And we'll kind of go around this side and then move over to this side. Sound good?
Just name or you want?
Name and church and maybe what role you're in or anything that would be helpful.
Okay. Dan Ward, I'll go to you, Jeffrey here.
Okay.
Been in the church involved just about 2 years, moved here. So relatively new to the church in some ways. But in any case, my interest is to come alongside some aspect of children's ministry, but it's been a while. So I'm trying to get kind of regroup.
Head back in.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to do some kids church teaching.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
I'm Carl Mark. I'm actually at the Boys and Girls Club here in Bemidji. I'm first 10 years or so I was directly with kids, and now I'm kind of in human resources and finances and in the building. Open.
You're great.
Thanks.
Oh, Patrick gave you the EP Free Church in Walker. Help with Awana.
Okay.
And I'll be again at the E-Free and Walker and Children's Ministry and all.
Okay.
Karen Claypool, and I help with Awana, but mainly I teach Sunday school. We're moving into a new church, so we've had to put everybody together in our old church, and now we're transitioning from that, and we're adding junior church, so I'll be doing junior church, so that's a new ministry for
Yeah, and you're at Northern Bible
Northern
Church.
Bible Church.
Okay. Good.
I'm Sarah Stackhoff, and I'm from the Waimea Alliance Church, and I do a lot with our preschool. I do Sunday school and Awana at the nursery. I'm actually taking some online classes for children's ministry. So.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go back to the corner over here.
I'm Penny Regier, and I'm from Hackensack, and the Free Church there, and I head up our children's ministry.
You want me to talk about that?
Okay.
Gary and Brenda Packer, we go to Wadena Alliance Church with Sarah, and she's a part of our children's program for Sunday school. We're involved in the children's portion of the Sunday school, and among other things with the music and audio video and stuff like that. But we've been doing the children's Sunday school ministry now for several years.
Okay. Great. Let's come over here.
Joy Tater, and I go to church here, and this year I'm teaching 5th grade Sunday school.
Okay.
Kathy Peterson. I'm with Bethany International. Right now I'm working with college students, training them how to do children's ministry. So we're working with a multi-ethnic group in the Twin Cities on Wednesday nights, as well as training a team to go into former Russia, Georgia, and do children's ministry in the month of May. So different lens, but still children.
Yes. Wonderful.
Sue Brown, and I go to church here and with the youth ministry on Wednesday nights.
Oh, okay.
Kids.
With youth or
Kids
kids?
ministry.
Kids. Okay.
Preschool.
Preschool.
Whoa!
Yeah. Wonderful. Okay.
My name is Amanda. I'm the Youth and Children's Ministry Director at a church in Bailey.
Good.
I'm Sylvia Jack, and I love kids. They are attracted to me, and I visit to children's ministry sometimes downstairs, and I just want to learn more and how to connect with them.
And where are you?
I'm from the United Christian Fellowship Church, Minneapolis.
In Minneapolis. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. You came all the way up here for this. All right.
We do that every year anyway.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay.
My name is Olivia Watson. I'm from United Christian Fellowship
Okay.
Church. I work with kids.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm a teacher in the kindergarten section.
Oh, okay.
So I want to make this my passion. So I want to learn more about it.
Wonderful. Good. Well, welcome to Bemidji.
I'm Lisa Mitchell. I am at Calvary Chapel here in Bemidji, and I help with our children's ministry team, leading
Okay.
and teaching them, mostly Sundays, but, yeah.
Okay. Well, good. Well, how about if we give you a brief snapshot of what kids ministry looks like in our church, in our context, and just to give you a sense of who we are. Do you want to start?
Sure. So we have 2 programs running, Wednesday evenings and Sunday mornings, same probably for a lot of you. Wednesday nights are an hour and 15 minutes, and it is a small group model. So the kids come in and they're connecting with their small group teacher and leader in their classrooms. We have game time, we have our large group time, which is our Bible lesson, and we do memory work, and then just prayer and connecting with the kids and review of what we learned in our large group time. So it's not, probably similar to a lot of your programs. Sunday mornings, we have a traditional kind of Sunday school hour. We begin with worship, and then we have kind of multi-age classes. Except for Joy. Joy's our solo 5th grade teacher. But then we kind of combine age groups for Sunday school. And I'm just trying to think, Sunday school. And we use the Gospel Project on Wednesday nights. Sometimes people are curious about curriculums. I'm just going to tell you that we use the Gospel Project on Wednesday nights. Like I said, it's a new role for me. I'm not certain I'm going to stay with that. But if you have any questions or are interested in it, I have tons of extra leader guides if you ever wanted to get your hands on things. So I'd love to share that with you too. So anyways, that's kind of what, and then we also have beginners church, or kids church we like to say, and that is a huge group for our church on Sunday mornings. There's about 20 kids that come for beginners church between 3 and 5, and our kids church is about 22. But I would say our nursery is also a big part of children's ministry, and we need to really address that here in this group too, because we have an overflowing nursery. So the Lord is good, but it's a good problem to have, but we got to address the nursery. That's right. That's right.
Well, at our church, very similar. We have Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, and on Sunday mornings we have 2 services, and during the first service it's more, the emphasis is on education. So while we have a large group, small group model, the emphasis is more on a kind of classroom type setting. And the second service we offer kids church, which is kind of partway through the worship service. We value having kids worship with their parents for the first half or so, and get them involved with communion, get them involved with offering. And then they go about halfway through for 40 minutes to go to kids church, where they get teaching and some activity there. And then Wednesday nights is our bigger program, and that's more of an inspiration emphasis with definite large group, small group, and we have some gym time. The emphasis there is on the small groups and connecting with their leaders there. We are an Orange church, so that means we use the Orange curriculum. For kids, that's First Look in preschool. For elementary, that's 252 kids. And then for student ministry, it's XP3, so we use the Orange strategy all throughout. If you have any questions about that, you can feel free to connect with me. So let's talk about building teams then. Now, how many volunteers do you have?
I would say we have about 15 volunteers on Wednesday nights, and about probably, well, I guess it's probably about similar on Sunday 15 volunteers. So I have 2 groups of people that I'm working with. They're all a part of my team, but it's separate. I deal with my Wednesday night group different than I deal with my Sunday group. So I'm communicating differently to them, and it's a different role that they're playing. So.
And in our kids ministry, we have about 75 volunteers working with, combining Sunday mornings and Wednesday nights, total maybe 250 interactions with kids, and sometimes there's a lot of overlap. Some of them come on Wednesdays and Sundays, so we have to get that number figured. But about 75 volunteers, and that's over all the different programs and ministries. So we want to take you through what it looks like to get some ideas about building this team. And we want to start with, first you got to know how to design it. What do you need? Now, we all come from different places and different programs. So I hear Awana, I hear Boys and Girls Club, we have Sunday school, we have, what other different kinds of, is there something that's different? I think those kind, and then our regular church and Sunday school and Wednesday nights. So it's going to look different. The way your team looks and the roles that you need are going to be different in your context. But you've got to start with, what is the vision for where we're going? Where do we want our kids ministry to go and look like in the end? And then work backwards from that to know what are the different roles, the key roles that we have. Now we can talk about some of our key roles that we have in our churches. And I have a blog that you can read more about these roles that we have. I don't want to spend too much time. It's called the NextGen blog.com. And you can find out more of this kind of stuff from our context there at the NextGen blog. And but some of the key roles that we have in our kids ministry really are, number one, the communicator, the teacher, the storyteller, whoever that is. That is a key role. And whoever you put into that role, they're going to have significant influence, not only on the kids' lives, but on the culture of your ministry. And so whoever you put into that role, they need to be top-notch, your best person who can really command the room, be creative and engaging with kids, and so on. Tell a story and help them see how it biblically relates to them. The next key role that we have is the small group leader. So in a large group, small group model, the small group leader really is the primary spiritual caregiver. Now we often think of the pastor as being the primary spiritual caregiver, or maybe the communicator, the storyteller, but really it's the small group leader. Or maybe in the Sunday school, it's that classroom teacher. That is your primary spiritual caregiver. They're going to be the one who knows the kids, who can relate the biblical text to their lives, who can help them navigate issues and problems. Another key role that we have is a coach. And that's someone who is a coach to small group leaders. Now in our setting with 75 volunteers, we have small group leaders who, there's just so many that the coordinator or the director or the staff person can't necessarily always connect with every one of them. So a key layer in between is the small group leader coach. And they help support the small group leaders or the classroom teachers to figure out how to manage behavior. The director is not going to be able to engage with every single person, but a small group leader coach can help the small group leader figure out what to do with this kid and their behavioral issues or their life challenges and give them ideas, and they can be roaming and assisting them in those ways. Other key roles that we have are the welcomers. I think that's a huge, very important person. To have a welcomer at the entrance of wherever your kids' ministry is, so that they can help new families come in. If you have any amount of new people coming in at all, they need to have someone right there designated to help them figure out, what do I do with my kids, where do I go, and a welcoming presence for them to get them checked in. And then also our welcomers are there afterwards to check the kids out to make sure that in our setting where we have so many people, hundreds of people, we don't always know who the parents, who the right adult is. And there may be, for us, there may be an estranged, non-custodial parent who's trying to get their kid in this massive public setting. So our welcomers are very keen to making sure that the right adult is picking up the right kid. And then another key role that we have is a safety role, a safety monitor. Someone who's just roaming the hallways, watching for suspicious people, watching for, could be thieves, it could be someone who has intent to harm, it could be someone who really just does not belong in that space. And they also help with emergencies and crises and things like that. So those are a few of our key roles. Do you have any key roles?
No, I think that's about similar, other than nursery too.
Okay.
You know, that whole nursery thing is also a part of children's ministry, but those are important people too, that are a part of your team. But it's when we're hands-on here.
So let's talk about maybe some teams. If you're going to build your team, there's also teams within the team.
Right. So that's an area that I enjoy and like, and there's other things that go on other than Sunday morning or Wednesday nights. And that can be, you know, your Christmas program or a VBS week, an outreach time. A lot of times people are changing environments to create, you know, excitement, those kind of things for your ministry. So that is also something that I like to pull people in that wouldn't normally be doing a Wednesday night role or a Sunday morning role, because there are creative people out there who may work during the week that don't want to be here on Wednesday nights. So I enjoy getting to know people and their strengths that way, and then saying, hey, you know, you would fit here. Another thing about building these separate teams, I don't necessarily look for only church people for those teams. I'm looking for people who bring their kids on Wednesday nights and say, hey, you know, we're gonna do, you know, VBS. You consider helping with snacks, or you know, or anything, you know, as I get to know people. So there are ways that you can look outside your core group of people to build in a bigger group.
And that's a great way to help them feel like
Right.
they belong to the church
Right.
and be more connected.
So they're filling in. And one of the things in my experience here at this church is that there are so many people on my team that aren't necessarily on a Wednesday night team or a Sunday morning team. I have people that are in my office saying, what can I do? I have a couple of hours. And they're organizing classrooms, going through old material and getting it in chronological order. I have other people who are like so willing to enter data. Like, I hate entering data. I hate it. Like, it's make it like, oh, you can't pay me enough to enter data. But like, they love it, you know? And so there are people out there, as you get to know them, that are built to be your helper there. And I would put them in an organizational team, you know, that they are good at that. So there's other ways that you can reach out to build bigger, you know, and wider. So, and it's background stuff, you know, stuff that lots of people don't want to necessarily be the main teacher in a classroom, or maybe it's just they find kids overwhelming, you know, but they're willing to help in other ways and feel supported in those roles. So I would say that's a great way to bring other people in. When you're pulling off big events, like say the Covenant Church does a huge shine carnival for fall, for Halloween. And like that is...
That Gerri organized.
yeah, that I organized for years. But that is where you can pull in a lot of people, and that is a separate team. That is a group of people that are working with you faithfully in that area, and that is a separate team. And that's when I work with intergenerational. That's when I try to get youth involved, you know, parents of youth involved, and fit them in those roles. Yes, Kathy?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that point because this is so exciting. So one of the former pastors of the Covenant Church, his wife had a skill of knowing just about everybody in the church, what their spiritual gift was, what talents they had, and she was like behind the scenes, getting to know people, Cheryl Carlson. And you know, for VBS, one year she had an elderly gentleman retired to all this beautiful woodwork. I think it was a cross, or it said Jesus or something. And you know, there are, like you say, it's so exciting to think of who God has placed in our community. We just have to get to know them and include them.
Exactly. So those are just, you know, things that you have to think differently about who you're pulling in for those things. Because you're in the trenches weekly, people are getting, tired by what they're doing, and they kind of need excitement and other people, doing things and collaborating with them. So I would say those are some of the key things that I think.
So we've got, you want to think ahead to what are your key roles that you really need to pull this ministry off to accomplish the vision. What are maybe even some different teams? You don't have to have the same group of people doing everything. You want to try to split it up and have people play to their strengths. And then use their time and energy wisely. If someone's doing weekly ministry, they're not going to want to also have to do a big, huge weekend event as well. You might want to try to split that up with different teams. But also something to keep in mind when you're designing your team is keeping ratios in mind, working the numbers. So we in our ministry have determined what is our philosophy of how many leaders or how many kids per leader. And when we go too many kids per adult, a small group leader or adult in general, now we're going beyond what our philosophy is. And so we've established some ratios. Now all of our ratios, I put it on my blog to help you. There's too many to really work out, but I'm going to give you some examples. So we have a leader to child ratios. Now leaders can be different ages. That includes youth, so all the way down to grade 6 for maybe working in the nursery. So honestly, if you have a 6th grader working with an adult, they count as a leader because they're giving attention. So some of our leader to child ratios would be 1 to 4 for nursery. For kids ages 0 to 2, we want 1 leader for every 4 kids. Some places will do 1 for every 3. For our preschoolers, ages 3 and 4, that'd be 1 to 6. For grades K through 2 would be 1 to 6. And grades 3 to 5 would be 1 to 8. Now that includes some of our youth helpers. We've also established some adult, we might have 2 teenagers in helping in the room, and they help with really bringing that ratio down, but we want to maintain safety as well, and so we have a minimum adult ratio. So our adult to kids ratios would be 1 to 6 for the nursery. So while it's 1 to 4 with leaders, once there is more than 6 kids, we need to have another adult in there as well. For ages 3 on up to 5th grade, it's 1 to 24. So if I've got a bunch of kindergartners, I can have a bunch of youth helpers, but I only need 1 adult for 24 kids with several youth helpers in there as well. So that helps you kind of figure out, okay, what kind of recruiting? You might be over-recruiting. You might be thinking that you need to have 3 adults in here for 6 kids. Well, you don't need to have that many. You can get away with 1 and then get some teenagers.
But you gotta have a good adult.
A good adult who is good at managing the room and
the
seeing the
teenagers.
issues.
Yeah.
Yes. And that leads to later today, or later in this workshop, we'll touch on training, onboarding your leaders. So if you're going to have youth helpers in there, you really got to spend some time training them on the front end and ongoing. You got to figure that out. So all of our ratios are listed on my blog, and so we don't have to spend a lot of time. But really, you need to think into what are your ratios. Think safety and think healthy ministry. What is safe and what is healthy? What is healthy for your leaders? We were at a point where we had 1 adult leader for 30 preschool kids with 1 helper in there. It's awful. You're going to kill that leader. They're going to, I don't want anything to do with this. I'm out. But if you're going to keep your leaders, you need to make sure that your ratios are safe and healthy. So think about your ratios and figure it out with your team for whatever your ministries are. Now, we want to get into the second step, which is once you've designed your team, you know what your needs are, now you got to start recruiting them. How many of you just love recruiting? A little bit of sarcasm in that. Gerri, I suspect that you actually like it.
I probably do.
You do. So if you hate recruiting, You're in company with so many people because you're not in the ministry for recruiting. You're in the ministry for the kids, right? We love the kids. But I want to know, how many of you are the kind of the primary leader of the kids ministry in some way? You're one of the primary leaders? Okay. Okay, you're on that leadership team that is putting it together. So it is your job to make sure that people are being recruited for these roles. And if you hate recruiting, you have to change the way you think about recruiting. You have to make changes to the way that you think, the way you pray, the way you work, and the way you talk, and the way you recruit. So, first of all, changing the way you think. We think that we go and talk to people and say, hey, will you help me do this ministry? You think then that you're the one who's doing ministry to kids. But as the primary leader, that's not your job. Your job is to help people in the church do ministry with kids. So you have to change the way you think by realizing that you're not asking people to help you. You're giving them an opportunity to do ministry with kids, to use their spiritual gifts, to use their talents and their passions for ministry with kids. Changing the way you think also includes that your calling is not just to kids. You think it is, but it isn't. Your calling is to help the church do ministry with kids. Your calling is to help the church warmly embrace and disciple children. And as a leader, your job is to help them do that. You also have to change the way you think about volunteers. You're not recruiting volunteers. You are giving people an opportunity to serve in the kingdom of God.
Which is the best place. Which is the best place. You know, that's where we have to really wrap our head around when we're talking about what people are doing. That's when we bring in vision, which we're going to get to. But I mean, we just really have to embrace that this is the eternal, enduring, kingdom. I jumped ahead of you, Jim.
No, that's
You're
good.
on
Go ahead.
But I'll go to my change the way you think, and then maybe you will prepare. So when we're talking about casting vision, we are talking about casting vision. It is the enduring kingdom of God. And it's the ongoing, everlasting kingdom that we get to be a part of. And that is why I love children's ministry, because I want kids to embrace that. What I found in being a leader, not only here, but another place with Jim at the Covenant Church, it is living out a life of vision. It is calling people to that. Every conversation I have, I am wanting to say, this is what's going on in the kingdom of God right here and around the world. So we are bringing people to an understanding of what we are doing. It is bigger than ourselves. And I think that if people start catching on to, it's not just a Wednesday night hour or a Sunday morning hour. It is something far larger than this, that people will get a hold of that and come alongside of you. So I love to have a conversation with people. When I first started here, every person I met, I would walk down these stairs and say, we're going to repaint every wall in this room, and we want to get it done by Rekindle. March 17th, and people were like, really? And we painted it, and we got this place repainted by Rekindle, and I mean, I have people here in this room that I walked down these halls and said, this is what we want to do here with these places. And that just casting vision and saying what you want to do. I have a room right over here. It says the kids' mid-teen room. And in my mind, I want to do a parallel Sunday school class on Sundays starting in the fall and have a parent Sunday school class there. Well, you can bet every parent I talk to, I'm going to be telling about that Sunday school class I want to have in the fall for parents. So slowly there's going to be buy-in to, yeah, she said something about that. Yeah, this is what she's going to do. So I think like bringing people in and showing them what you're going to do and talking about where you're going with things. Now, I'll be honest, I don't know exactly where I'm completely going with kids ministry here, like starting in January, but I know that I have a big perspective of what God wants to do. And so, I mean, I'm honest with people about that, right, Dan? Like, I'm not sure what God is going to do in these places, but this is where He's brought me, and this is where we're going to go. So I think the more conversations you can have saying what you want to embrace here in this place is huge. I also do a lot of that with my team. So I am telling my team, especially my Sunday morning team, I am telling them in emails weekly, like, this is what God is doing, this is what we've seen, and I am communicating that way, and I'm communicating vision all the time. So I also think being an example, just like I said, conversations, talking about it, being in that role is huge. I, of course, wanted to make my ministry here in this church appealing to other people so that they would want to join with what I was doing. And I early on realized when I came into this role that people were expecting something from me. Now, I couldn't come in and change like the curriculum and the format and all those things and just like turn it on its head. But I could change how it looked. And people could be like, oh, she's going to do something here. Wow, I might want to get on board with her. So that, that was my objective, to tell you the truth. And people were very much like, oh, maybe I'll consider coming on your team, So, I mean, that's how, I believe it's going to begin. So I think if you have little projects that you want to do, or big projects, start bringing your people into that idea. Have the buy-in. I also am available. So I really try to be available to talk with people. I try not to be in a role that I have to like teach Sunday school on Sunday mornings. I am the person who is available to talk to parents. I'm not necessarily the welcomer, I'm not the welcomer, but I'm in the halls and I'm talking to parents and greeting them. And besides that, I'm keeping regular office hours. And so I'm here, and I am amazed at how many people stop in and want to talk to me. I mean, Tuesdays it's like one after another. People just like, oh yeah, I was just in the office and I just wanted to say this, and I'm meeting with people. And so I believe that being available regularly is a great thing. Now I know maybe a lot of you are in roles that are volunteer roles. So I mean, you're not, at this job, but maybe there are times that you're available after church all the time. Just I don't visit with my friends after church. I'm available for parents after church. Really deciding that I can, step into this time of building instead of, visiting or whatever. So I try to make myself available that way. So, and then I was going to say, I also, I like to build bridges and be very intentional about being intergenerational. So I am connecting with elderly people and youth. Like when I'm done with children's ministry here on Wednesday night, I head down to the gym and see the youth as they're all leaving. So I'm seeing those small group leaders with the youth, and I'm visiting with people and connecting, through generations. We have a pretty active senior adult group in this church, and I try to be available when they meet on Fridays here to have lunch with them. It's like the last Friday. So I have that on my calendar, that I'm available to talk to them and visit with them. And that's how I got to know Dan and, could visit with him. So those are things that I try to do. And of course, always, when I say that I don't mind recruiting, it's because I love people. And so I'm relational that way, and I want to get to know people. And so I know that, it's not that some people don't love people, but, it's just I like to know people. And so it's not hard for me. I can kind of put those pieces together pretty quickly.
But even if you don't have that natural personality that just loves being out with people, that extrovert kind of personality,
you can still work at it.
You can work at it, and you can learn the skills. You develop those. So let's go back up to change the way you pray. You really need to be praying for the needs that you have. So pray for the need. And if you're not praying for the need, then you can't expect God to provide for you. So be asking Him, pleading with Him, God, this is huge. This is a big need. It's up to you to fill it. I'll do the best that I can, but you need to fill this role.
I was just gonna say on that too, I also bring my team in to that need.
Yeah.
So I'm bringing that need before my team saying, let's pray, we need more people in the nursery. You know, I'm bringing and communicating those things to them also.
But also, not just pray for your need in the role, but pray for the people who are in your church. That they would find meaningful connection in serving in the church in some way to use their giftedness. So don't just pray for what you feel like you need to get your job done, to do it well. Pray for the people. Because if you're only praying for your program, then you're losing sight of the bigger picture of what God is doing. Pray for the people as well. And then pray boldly. God, if this is going to happen, it's up to you. I'll do my best, but it's up to you. And then you trust and you lean into that. Now jump down to change the way you recruit.
So I want to also bring in the idea that when we're recruiting, we're not necessarily, we're recruiting for certain key roles, but we're not necessarily recruiting only saved people. There are people who might know Jesus and think that church is important, but they may not, they may not, it's not like we have to have these vibrant, super active Christians. We might have nominal people on the fringe that we could draw in to our team, put them in a role that makes them feel a part of things, and they may see Jesus in a very real way in what we're doing. Now, would I put them in charge of being the small group leader? Probably not. But would I put them as a helper? Yes, I would. Would I put them, I would find ways that they could connect with what this ministry, because I believe that this, like he said, it's a bigger thing. It's about our church. It's about the gospel going forth. So I'm thinking, think gospel. Think the good news. I mean, every interaction that you have with parents, and I will tell you, in this church, our Wednesday night is completely different than our Sunday morning. I probably have 4 families that overlap Wednesday and Sunday. Other than that, it is a completely different group of people, and that entire Wednesday night do not attend on Sunday morning. So I am now in this role going, okay, so how do I connect them to this body? And what do I do? And I am going to pull in them. I'm going to pull them in, if I have to, in our classrooms to make them connect. I've invited them to come. Typically on our Palm Sunday, we haven't had the Wednesday night kids sing with the Sunday morning kids. It's just been a Sunday school thing. Well, this year, we're drawing them all in and asking them to be a part of what we have going on, because it is such a different group. So think gospel, or think kingdom. Yeah. So another thing is just to ask, and this is the relational part that you're just asking people personally and taking time for people. In my recruiting, I am just very deliberate about connecting with people one-on-one. Like, can I meet with you and talk with you? Could we get together? It does not have to take an entire day. It can take an hour, and that you're just saying, I'd love to. I would go if people were working. Could I meet and hard to get connect with? I mean, I would go to their lunch hour and we could sit in our car and talk if I had to, to their job. Just to make a connection to the ministry is, I think, so important. And then, getting to know people and their gifts, what they're good at, and that, that's that part about being and getting to know people. And then, of course, getting people in the right roles. That takes a little time, because you're going to find out, that's a great person for social ministry. I'm not sure they should be in charge of the 2nd grade class. Because that 2nd grade class is a handful, but they might fit over here, or, getting to know people, and I think that's important, to be able to be fluid, to be able to say, how do you, because no doubt if you're observing, like, I'm not sure that's working for them, they're feeling the same way. So I think it's just communicating openly about what they, what their gifts are and those are, because if you see that. So I feel like you can really get people, people will feel right. Like Joy particularly loves her Sunday school class, and it's a perfect fit for her. And she loves it, and the kids love her. And it's just perfect. Now, if she was in the kindergarten class, I'm not sure Joy would love it as much. But, you know, she'd probably do it, but it's just, those are the things. I also think asking people to just do a small thing is key. It doesn't have to be a huge thing. Being a greeter, being your safety check-in person, those are all things that they can still do, be a part of things, you can count on them for, but they could still make it to a parenting class if they needed to or want to. You know, even a small manageable role really does work. And then, of course, when you're, you know, talking with people about where they would fit, I think that they need to answer for themselves. So, deciding, you know, what works for them or not, and I think we can really present our needs and do it that way. So, obviously, we can make announcements in church, we can try to recruit people that way. It works. You know, sometimes those things work great, but I think personal contact with people is the better way to do it, because then you're casting your vision.
And I like to remind myself that Jesus' disciples did not respond to a bulletin announcement.
Right.
He invited each one of them personally into ministry with him. And that's really where your best recruitment will happen. So let's go to change the way you talk, and then I think we're going to wrap it up there. I'm just going to give you 3 little things here on this. Don't say, hey, could you help with whatever? Instead, say, hey, I noticed that I think you would be really good at this, whatever it is. Because that shows that you care about the person that you're talking to and not just getting your job done, not just getting a warm body in that role. Second thing is, don't say, I need someone in this position or this role. I need this. No, instead, you go back, you turn it around, you say, you would be great at this role, and our church would really need someone like you. So it's not about me, it's the church, it's about them. Yeah.
What was your response to this question? You said,
don't say, could you help?
Could you help?
Could you help? Instead, say, I think you would be good at. I noticed this about your personality, or I see these strengths in you. Again, that goes back to changing the way you think. You're not just trying to run a program. You are called to build the kingdom. And as a leader, you're seeing the whole of the church, and not just your kids' program. The third thing would be, don't use the word volunteer. Hey, we need some more volunteers in the nursery. We need some more volunteers in the kids' ministry. Instead, you say, hey, I think you would be good at being a small group leader. I think you'd be a great welcomer. You have such a wonderful personality. I think you would be really good at helping keep our kids safe by just walking around and monitoring the safety. Okay, so instead of saying volunteer, be specific. Be specific about the role and their giftedness. Okay. Now, there's others we put on there in case we had time to get to. I'm going to just let you know that when it comes to training and equipping your team, I brought some of my resources from our church of what we do for training our volunteers. We take them every year through, these are our values and practices. This is what we do and why we do it. And so that's my booklet over here. And then these are our policies. These are our safety policies, our healthy ministry protocols, and so on. And so we have all of our volunteers sign off on that. And I have all of those available at this table up here. We're not going to go into that. But I want to give just a couple minutes here for any questions that you might have that have come up as we've been talking about it. We've talked about changing the way you think about recruiting. We've talked about how you design your team, thinking with vision in mind. We've talked about changing the way you talk, the way you go about recruiting, changing the way you work. You're not just the doer of the ministry, you're the bridge builder, you're the networker.
Do you ever say like a timeline, like, you know, I think you would be good at this, our church really needs you for this, would you do it for 3 weeks, or do they have to like commit to the whole
Depends on the role
year?
and what your philosophy is.
Yeah, what you really need.
So I have a high value on weekly in certain roles. So that nursery, primary nursery leader,
Sure.
man, those little babies, they need consistency. They need a familiar face.
I
every
think I'm
time.
thinking more like, try it out, and you don't have to commit right away. Like, do you give them like a week or two to just be in there and check it out? Or they probably have to go through all the training first, because of
Yeah, no, we
safety.
do that. We say, hey, I think you would be good at this. Why don't you come see what we do? Come see what we do, hang out with this small group leader, or hang out with this person.
Yeah.
And then come back again the next week and ask some more questions, and then let's sit down again and talk about it.
Because it's hard to commit if you don't have any,
Yes.
like,
One way that I do that is to say, hey, would you, so I think you'd be good at this. Would you be interested in talking about it with me?
That's the first step.
That's the first step. Would you be interested in talking about it? Just talking about it. No
I
commitments.
think I can handle that.
No big grab. Just let's talk about it. And then go through that process, and then, okay, now come back to it. What do you think? I love it. Awesome. Let's do it. And then you go into the training, onboarding.
How many of you are like looking for, like need volunteers? Are you desperate for volunteers or just need them? Yeah.
Let's say one thing that somebody, this isn't a question, I went to another conference a couple weeks ago and somebody shared for recruiting, you could ask the people that are already doing your ministry
Yes.
to pray for, God to put somebody on their heart. And they personally ask, because sometimes somebody else asking, I'm just sharing, so, because I was like, I never really thought, about that.
Yeah, changing the way you recruit. It doesn't just have to be you.
Yep.
You can ask people on your team to ask people.
And that's really the best way.
It is.
They're on the board with you, so you guys should do it. And then it kind of becomes a funnel to you.
Right.
So that really is the best thing. So if you're creating vision and excitement and a ministry team, then see people are on board with that and they want to have other
And you
people.
do have to be a little careful. You'll have to figure this out in your setting. Sometimes people will ask someone and they'll think that they're in,
Yeah.
but they really are not the right fit. And you as the leader can see that, but the person that did the recruiting may not see it. Or you might know, like as a pastor, I might know something about this person that this person does not know. And so we've created a way where we say, hey, if you do help us with recruiting, but ask them if they're interested. And if they are, then come talk to me. And I'll navigate through that.
How about screening then the volunteers to know if they're a safe fit?
Yeah, we do. Every volunteer in our NextGen ministry goes through a national criminal background check. And
Before they ever are with kids?
So before they can step foot into their role, or even in the space with the kids, unless they are tagging along tightly with someone else that's already in our ministry, they have to go through screening.
And we use the Mobilize My Ministry, which is the bomb. You use that?
We use, oh gosh, I can't remember.
Oh, so, they have them online, they go, you send an email to the people, and they fill it out, and then it comes back to your computer. It's not like you're filling out paper. It's an online form that's submitted, and then your church just gets charged.
It's so easy.
It's so much easier now,
Yeah.
so.
And you have to budget for it, too.
Yeah.
How often do you do that? Every year?
Every 2 years.
We do every 3 years.
2 or 3 years?
Yeah.
They have to re-up every 3 years for us, every 2 years for you guys.
And how about these bigger situations with kids getting picked up and you're not sure about the parents and whatever? What are they doing, showing driver's license? Or what do you have
Jim's
to
really
do?
good at this.
No, we have a check-in system. It's a digital check-in system with iPads and iPods. And so when kids get registered, they get put into our database. And then when they are a part of our system, then they can just check in by name. And then when they check out, they scan the little name tag. And then it pulls up all the list of all the authorized adults that are allowed to pick up this kid. And so that's coming from the custodial parent. And so if grandma is authorized, then great, take her. But if it's some strange person that we don't know and they're not on the list, we're not going to let them go.
Maybe you wouldn't know if it was grandma necessarily. Do you make them show a driver's license then or something?
We would if it really comes to that. But that's when we have the check-in person or the checkout person contact the director, the staff person, or the lead person.
But you're not sure.
to figure it out.
And so we're not there at this point here at the E3 Church. We do a sign-in, check-in and out, and so the classroom teachers are aware of who it is, and then they say who's picking up. And so, and our ministry isn't as big as the Covenant's ministry. So, but that's, I feel like it's, you know, it's an impending need. So
Just something.
something. So we're
Do
checking,
something.
checking
Well, on
out.
Wednesday nights, I think it's getting bigger and bigger.
So are you
Every
doing
place.
any sort of check-in, check-out?
Oh,
or-
they do, I
Yeah.
don't want to, but I mean, we have
Yeah.
parents that are,
Well, currently, we're looking into the safe place
Okay.
format, and we've got a committee, I have to be on that, we've got a committee that's going
Right.
through the safe
Well,
place policy.
If you want to talk some of that, just find me afterwards. Well, we need to wrap up and let people go. We can move on to the next workshop. If you have any other questions for us, we're here.
Sure.
We're just going to step off to the side and feel free to come up and chat